It's a new product overview video for the BNSF Heritage SD70ACe diesel locomotives. These BNSF Heritage locomotives, while they are fictitious paint schemes, are quite attractive. They're available in Burlington, Santa Fe, as we have here, Frisco, Burlington Northern, Great Northern, Northern Pacific. Each one of those road names have two different road numbers for powered units and one separate road number for non-powered units. We also have a EMD demonstrator SD70ACe available as a separate part number. Out of the package you will receive, obviously, the SD70, the instruction manual for loading the engine memory module, the instruction manual for the Heritage SD70ACe, smoke fluid funnel, smoke fluid pipette, 4 replacement traction tires, and the engine memory module that is specific to the road name and road number of the locomotive that you've purchased. These SD70ACes feature die-cast fuel tank, trucks, side frames, pilots, dual coil couplers, directional lighting, dual can motors, a fan-driven smoke unit, legacy rail sounds, legacy speed control, and obviously legacy control. This legacy SD70ACe is equipped with switches that are accessible from the top of the locomotive. The switches are located underneath the rear radiator hatch. And once you remove the radiator hatch, using both hands, it's a snug fit, it exposes the switches, the volume pot, and the bracket for the 9-volt battery. The switches that we have for this locomotive are program run, Odyssey on off, smoke on off, manual volume pot, and the bracket for the 9-volt battery. The program run switch, if being operated in conventional mode, the program position is used to lock out the reverse unit so that it only goes one direction all the time. The run position in conventional operation will allow you to cycle between all directional states. If you're operating with TMCC1 or Legacy, the program position is used for programming the locomotive ID number, and the run position is used for operating the locomotive. The next switch is labeled No ODY, which would be the Odyssey off position. In this position, the speed control is disabled, whether you're in conventional or command legacy operation. In the ODY position, the Odyssey speed control is enabled, and the locomotive will maintain the same speed regardless of track conditions or load. The smoke on off switch in the no SMK position will ensure that the smoke unit stays off in conventional mode, and if you're operating in command or legacy in the switches in the no SMK position, you will not be able to turn the smoke unit on regardless of what the remote says. In the SMK position, smoke is on and can be controlled from the legacy remote or a cab 1 in command mode, and if it's in the smoke or SMK position conventionally, the smoke unit will be on when you operate the train. The manual volume potentiometer is for you to control the volume in conventional mode. And finally, the bracket back here and the holder for the 9-volt battery is for folks who are operating in a conventional environment who don't want the sounds to drop out during directional state changes. Before we get the locomotive on the track, it's always a good idea to lubricate the locomotive. This will help the locomotive during the break-in period and prevent any squeaks or squeals from presenting themselves while we're operating the train. Using a little light oil from the Lionel lubrication and maintenance kit, we want to make sure that we put a drop of oil on the axles where they go through the bearing. Just a small drop is required. We want to do this on both sides of the truck block itself. Now, This locomotive features what we call a non-locking gearbox, which will allow you to work these axles with just your thumb while it's laying on its roof to work some of that oil into place. We also recommend that you put a drop of oil on the axle for the collector, prevent that from squealing, and just a small drop on either side, and work that in with your finger. You want to do the same thing to the other truck, and then we can get the locomotive on the track. Now, before we get our SD70ACe on the track, we need to make sure that we first load the memory module into our Cab 2 remote. Before we do that, we want to tell the remote what locomotive number we're going to address this Santa Fe. Since the cab number is 1996, we'll use the numbering convention of the last two digits, so we'll press engine 96. Now we'll press the info key, and we'll take our orange memory module, which comes with each specific locomotive, and we'll load it into the slot on the top of the remote. It tells us that the module is inserted. It's an ATSF 38735 SD70, number 1996. Load engine data, press the key under yes. It tells us that the data is loaded, and remove the module. Keep this module in a safe place in the event that you need to ever load it again in the future. Let's take a few minutes and look at what this has done for us. It's already assigned our name, so we can skip this screen by pressing the scroll button. It's set our type to diesel. Press scroll again. It's set the control to legacy mode. Pressing scroll again, you can see that it has set our sound to legacy rail sounds. To exit the engine menu, we simply press the info screen. You can see the road number appears momentarily in the large field here. Under engine 96, we have ATSF SD70. To get that number to appear again, we simply press engine 96. The road number appears momentarily. Now we're ready to run the engine. We press the aux 1 key. We can see the icons that are specific for volume up, crew talk, manual RPMs up, volume down. The black circle is shut down. If we turn the throttle of the locomotive, the circle changes to a triangle, which is emergency stop, which activates a dialogue all its own. We turn the throttle down again, stop the engine, our icon goes back to a circle for shutdown. We have manual RPMs down, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. Because we're in legacy mode, we have 3 levels of smoke. We have ground lights on and ground lights off, engine reset, Rule 17 lighting enabled, Rule 17 lighting off. If we press the speed bar, you can see we have our 6 preset railroad speeds, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on, the bar graph for our labor, which is directly representative of these buttons here, effects up and effects down. If we press the up button, you can see up here on the screen it says labor increase, and the bar graph rises. By pressing the down arrow button, you can see it says labor decrease, and the bar graph drops. The bar graph, used in conjunction with the effects buttons, will activate different sounds on your locomotive to make it work harder or work less hard pulling a load. Finally, the number 1 is representative of roll speed, or the very first speed step that the locomotive will attain and maintain. Now, before we apply power to our SD70ACe, we want to make sure that we first prime the smoke unit. To do this, we're going to use the pipette that came with the locomotive and some Lionel Premium smoke fluid. Now, we only want to fill the pipette about 3/4 of the way from the tip to the very first line. Carefully insert the pipette through the grills and insert the smoke fluid. It's a good idea to do a couple puffs of air to make sure that we don't have a meniscus blocking the stack. We can then turn on the power. Now, once power is applied to these Heritage SD70ACEs, you'll notice the only thing that illuminates is the number boards in the front. Nothing illuminated in the locomotive in the rear, and the engine is completely silent. To get our locomotive programmed, we have to assign an ID number to it. So to do this, we're going to remove the radiator hatch on the back of the locomotive, and we're going to place the program run switch in the program position. Using our Legacy remote that we've already loaded the module into, we're going to address engine 96 and press the set button. The horn blast acknowledges that the locomotive took the command, and we can now place the program run switch back into the run position. Go ahead and turn the smoke unit on to the high setting, and it's not uncommon for it to take a few seconds for the smoke unit to start producing smoke. Go ahead and replace the radiator hatch. We'll give you an example of what this locomotive can do. We'll show you the horn. The bell. Go ahead and run it through all 8 levels of the RPMs. That would be notch 8 in the sound system, and I'll go ahead and rev it down. That's the locomotive back down at idle. Now, as soon as I crack the throttle to get the locomotive running, a couple things happen. Number one, if Rule 17 lighting is enabled, my front headlight gets brighter, my ditch lights illuminate, and my ground lights come on. Now the ground lights are used for the engineer to determine his speed at night by looking out the window and counting the ties that pass underneath him. Once we pass speed step 24 or 25, those ground lights will turn off automatically. As we run the locomotive, you'll notice that the smoke unit output increases quite dramatically, as opposed to when the engine is sitting at idle. The locomotive is designed this way so that it's only generating a large volume of smoke when it's moving, as opposed to when it's sitting at idle. Go ahead and play some of the crew talk and tower comm dialogues for you.
Dispatcher, I've got a full tank of fuel. Engine is at restricted speed. Out.
Tower comm.
Dispatcher here. Switch your line. You're clear inbound. Over. Copy, we have that clear. Out.
Go ahead and slow the locomotive down with the brake button. Get the squealing brake sounds. And you'll also notice that the amount of smoke that comes out of the engine will also diminish when the locomotive is stopped. Now when you press the direction button, the front headlight goes off and the rear headlight comes on. The locomotive is equipped with front and rear electrocouplers, which can be activated by pressing the F or the R icons on either the Cab 1 remote or the Legacy remote. If you happen to have a coil coupler that's stubborn, that doesn't want to open all the way, we strongly suggest that you use a little dry graphite lubricant right in the throat of the coupler where the slug that holds the knuckle shut is located. Fire the coupler a couple times and close it with your finger, and the coupler will loosen up and that knuckle will begin to open reliably for you. These Heritage SD70ACEs are also equipped with what's known as sequence control. Sequence control is a series of sound dialogues that are triggered by throttle commands. To enter the sequence control mode, you simply press and hold the aux1 or straight arrow key for 3 seconds until you hear 2 bells and a horn. It sounds like this. That tells us that the engine is now in sequence control, so when I go to speed step 1, the locomotive will not actually start moving, but it will gear up and prepare to move, play the dialogue. When I go to speed step 2, we go to speed step 2, the locomotive will actually begin moving. That's speed step 1. Speed step 2, our bell turns on automatically and will stay on until we reach speed step 23 and beyond. So once we get beyond speed step 23, the bell turns off. As I make sudden throttle changes with the locomotive, you'll hear the dialogue that occurs. All of these sounds are based on throttle response only. So as I turn the throttle up quickly and turn it down quickly, the locomotive plays these sounds. There's a whole lot of other sequences that the locomotive will play the longer that you run the locomotive. As we start to slow the train down and we reach speed step 23, the bell comes on and stays on until we're at a complete stop.
Train is at a complete stop. We'll let you know when we're underway. Now.
To exit sequence control mode, you simply press the aux1 or straight arrow key, and if you have a Cab 1, you press 0. On a Legacy remote, you press the R icon. The horn blast tells you that it has left sequence control and it's back to manual control. We can add fuel to this locomotive by pressing and holding that reset key, such as this. That sound will play as long as you hold down the R or the reset key. Once you let off, you'll get this dialogue.
Dispatcher, we've got a full tank. Over. Roger that. Out.
Also, when you're running the locomotive and you're underway and the ditch lights are illuminated, the ditch lights will oscillate when you blow the horn. And you'll notice that the ditch lights continue to oscillate a few seconds after you let off the horn, which is just how the prototypes do it in real life. We'll go ahead and stop this locomotive. We'll go through the shutdown sequence.
Going off duty. Have a good one. Now.
Now that we've shut the locomotive down, we're back to the point where we were when we first applied power. The only thing illuminated in the locomotive is the number boards, the headlights, the ditch lights, the smoke unit, and the cab light are all dark. And they will stay dark until we start the locomotive up again by either using the power button in the lower left-hand corner after we address the locomotive, or by pressing aux1 and manual RPMs up. We hope that you enjoy the paint schemes and that you'll add one to your collection in the near future. Thank you.